Hakadosh Boker Or Masechet Bava Kamma Daf Pechet Amud Aleph 88a. We are by the two dots, where the two dots actually comes here, and it says Hachovel be'eved Kinaani shel acherim. We're talking about somebody that's going to be chovel in an eved Kinaani that belongs to other people. So remember, somebody that's chovel, he has to pay the 5 different damages if it's a human being to another human being. Here we're talking about that you are chovel in an eved Kinaani of somebody else. So he said you're going to be chayav the 5 things, but Rabbi Yehuda says there's no bullshit. There's no embarrassment for an eved Kanani. My time Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Yehuda that he says that there's not going to be a bullshit for the eved Kanani? So my time Rabbi Yehuda. He says, Hamarkar, the pasuk says, Ki natsu anashim yachtav ish ve'achiv. What does that mean? When it says Ki natsu anashim yachtav ish ve'achiv, it means that there's going to be fighting between brothers. But it says ish ve'achiv, a person and his brother. B'mi sheyesh lo achva. We're talking about obviously somebody that has achva. That means obviously here we're talking about somebody that there is an achva between them. And therefore that's why we're talking about that there's going to be the 5 different things. Yatsa eved, this comes to exclude an eved. She'en lo achva. There's no achva by an eved. An eved is a slave. He's not your brother. So therefore, since he's not going to be your brother, so therefore there's not going to be bullshit for an eved. But according to the rabbis, achivu b'mitzvot, he is your brother. You know why he's your brother? Because he's chayav b'mitzvot, just like you're chayav b'mitzvot. Meaning you're right, it's not 100% a brother, but at the end of the day, there does exist the concept that he is your brother. He's your brother mitzvot, meaning he's obligated to mitzvot. Remember that an eved Kanani, the second that he becomes an eved of a Jew, he starts acting, right? He has the mitzvot of a woman, which means you cannot, it's obviously time bound. You can't tell him now to start doing all the mitzvot, because if not, then imagine every single time he would come and would tell you, sorry, I have to say shachrit, sorry, I have to say mincha, sorry, I have to do arbit, sorry. By the time it comes out, what's he actually working for you? Nothing. Like so therefore, like a wife with us. Exactly. So therefore, right, what happens is obviously it can't be that, but he's obligated like a woman in the time and the mitzvot. Fine. Says the Gemara, Ela mi'ata. So now we're going to ask the question one more time. The machloka between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan is an eved your brother or not? Says Rabbanan, he's achiv b'mitzvot. But says Rabbi Yehuda, right, that he's not going to be, he's not achiv. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda, zomeme eved lo yarog. 1 second. Betin will never kill edim zomim that testified on an eved Kenani. Dichtiv va'asitem lo kasher zaman. Lasot le'achiv. Now, if you're going to tell me now that achiv does not include eved, so imagine right now you have 2 witnesses come and say that an eved Kenani went and he killed. Now, usually, what is halacha, right? Without eved Kenani, 2 people come and they say Mr. A killed. What's halacha? They were found to be edim zomim. What's halacha? They are killed, right? Vasitem lo kasher zaman. Right? That what they wanted to do, that's what comes to them. What goes around comes around. It's a famous saying, but it comes from the Torah. Yeah? So now what happens? What happens now is that 1 second. Here you have a case where because it's written, Lasot le'achiv, Rabbi Yehuda, you just told me that it's not achiv. So if it's not achiv, what's going to happen? So now what? You're not going to kill the edim zomim on an eved? So answers the Gemara, Amar Rava, Amar Rav Sheshat, says Rava in the name of Rav Sheshat, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Uvirta hara mikirbecha. What does that mean when it says Uvirta hara mikirbecha? Uvirta hara mikirbecha means mikom makom, meaning in any case, we want to devour the bad. We want to get rid of the bad. These guys are coming and testifying falsely. We have to get rid of them. We don't care who they're testifying falsely about. So therefore, you want to come and say, no, but it says La'asol le'achiv, and this is not really achiv. And no. These are people that are edim zomimim, which are ra ubiyarta hara. You have to do like biur chametz. You have to get rid of them. You have to destroy them. You have to burn them, annihilate them, get rid of them. We don't want these people. Okay? So says the Gemara, okay, fine. Now, if you're going to tell me though, now let's flip the coin. Ze pechet amud aleph. Pechet amud aleph. Okay? So now the question that we ask ourselves is, 1 second. We just said according to Rabbanan, right? According to the rabbis, We just said that he is achiv b'mitzvot. Correct? He is achiv. Right? Why is he achiv b'mitzvot? So elameat al rabbanan, according to the rabbis, eved yeh kasher lemalchut. Are you going to tell me then that an eved could be a king? Because it says, Som tasim alecha melech mikerev achecha, from your brothers. So are you going to tell me now that means, according to the rabbis, if you're going to tell me now that this is your brother, are you allowed to? Yeah, no problem. You could put an eved to become a king. So Amri, they said, velitamech, and according to you, tik shilach ger ledivrei hakol. What about a ger? A ger is not allowed to become a king. Do you know that a convert, he cannot have any high, right, very high positions, right? It's there's a machloket to do shlich tzibur, right? But to do with high positions, a ger cannot. Why? He's not a checha. He's not your brother. He's a convert. So he says, ger also tik shilicha, ella, but rather amar kra. The pasuk says, mikerev achecha mimuvcha shebeachecha. What does it mean, mikerev achecha? It says that the melech you have to get from the best of your brothers. And therefore, since you have to get it from the best of your brothers, that's why an eved is going to be pasul for malchut. Meaning, even though it said me'achecha, right, it still said mikerev achecha. Why does it say mikerev achecha? So therefore, it has to be somebody that's miyuchas, somebody that has very good genealogy, somebody that has very, very good roots, lineage. Okay, so they're very, very important. So says the Gemara, okay, fine. Another question then. Ela me'atal rabbanan, according to Rabbanan, ye eved kasher la'edut. If an eved is your brother, can he be kasher la'edut? Obviously not. Tichtiv hined sheker ahed, sheker na be'achiv. Your brother. Now you're going to tell me that an eved is your brother. So what? Are you going to tell me now? So why is an eved pasul la'edut? So Ula says, edut lo matzit amart. You cannot say the entire concept of edut. Iglal atya edut bekal v'chomer meisha. We learn edut from a kal v'chomer, from a woman, that what? Just like a woman, shiruya lavo bakal. A woman could get married to anybody. A woman, she could get married to anybody that she wants, but still psula le'edut. She's still psula le'edut. So eved, which is not rawi lavo bakal, can an eved get married to anybody? An eved can marry to anybody. He's an eved, right? He can only get married to a shivcha kenanit. So enodin sheyeh pasul le'edut means it comes out to the kal v'chomer. How do you know that an eved cannot be kosher for edut? Kal v'chomer from a woman. That's the way it is. Kal v'chomer from a woman. So therefore, since right now you're going to tell me now that it's a kal v'chomer from a woman, it has nothing to do with the pasuk of achecha or achicha or not. Nothing to do with, right? Nothing to do with your brother. Because even if he was your brother, it doesn't matter. You have a kal v'chomer from a woman. And therefore you're not allowed to come and you're not allowed to have edut. So ask the Gemara, Mali isha sheken eruya lemilah. Tomar be'eved shehu ra'u lemilah. He says, 1 second. How do you make a kal v'chomer from a woman? Women are different intrinsically from men. Right? A woman, there's no brit milah by a woman. Do you know there's a lot of girsaot, and Moroccans had this girsa, that in the middle of Birkat Hamazon, in Al Artzenu V'al Nachalat Avotenu Nod Lecha, they would skip out, it would be in brackets. Why would it be in brackets? Because the women, right, the women would skip it out. The women would actually skip it out, right? Why? Because women do not have brit milah, and women do not have the chiyuv of Torah.
There's also something
Yeah?
that he says that.
Yes, yeah, but that was a very big minhag, right? That what? They would skip it out. So he says here, a woman does not have brit milah, an eved does have brit milah. So what are you comparing, right? The eved to a woman, and you're making a kal v'chomer that just like a woman is pasul edut, so to an eved has a brit. A woman doesn't have a brit. So answers the Gemara, fine. Katan yochiach. What about a katan? A katan, a minor, right? A katan also has a brit, but is he kasher le'edut? No, he's not kasher le'edut. So that's a katan yochiach. So he says, why? Sheyeshno b'milah, he's got a brit milah, but he's still pasul le'edut. A child cannot be an ed. מה?
חרש, שוטה וקטן.
לא, זה אותו דבר, אבל פה זה מילה. מילה. כן? לא, חירש זה יותר גרוע גם, כי בגלל אין לו דעת, זאת אומרת זה יותר גרוע. זה אף פעם לא יהיה. קטן זה יבוא לכלל דעת. So says the Gemara, מה לקטן? What about a קטן though? שאינו במצוות. So he says, תאמר בעבד שהוא מצוות. One second. You wanted to tell me that it's not because of אחיך. Meaning, Why is it that an Eved, if the Eved is called Achicha according to Rabbanan, was Achicha b'mitzvot, so why is he not Kasher Ledut? We answered, no, nothing to do with Achicha. Kal v'chomer from the Isha. He said, one second, Milah. He says, okay, fine. Katan yochiach. Because even though the woman does not have a milah, an Eved has a milah. So katan yochiach. Says, one second, but a katan doesn't have mitzvot. Meaning what we do with the katan is only chinuch. It's not real mitzvot. An Eved does have mitzvot. So again, you knock off katan. So then what's the reason then? Male katan sheno mitzvot, u'mer be'eved shu mitzvot. And so the Gemara, isha tochiach. What about a woman? A woman does have mitzvot, right? And she's still pasul ledut. So therefore, she ishta mitzvot pasul ledut. The Chazar Adin, so therefore it comes out that this is what's called a binyan av. Lo reizeh kereizeh, ve'lo reizeh kereizeh, hatzad hashave shebahen, sheken enan bechol hamitzvot, u'psuli la'id. Afad yavi et ha'eved, she'enan bechol hamitzvot, u'psuli la'id. Which means like this. I cannot compare the Eved 100%, right, to the child. Why not? Because even though they both have Brit Milah, but the child doesn't have mitzvot, and Eved does have mitzvot. I cannot compare to the Eved to an Isha. Why? Because the Isha does not have Brit Milah, and an Eved does have a Brit Milah. So therefore, the Eved, I cannot compare them to either or. But there's a common denominator between them. The common denominator between them is that at the end of the day, they're not in all the mitzvot, but they're still pasul to testify. And therefore, the exact same thing to do with the Eved, even though he's not in all the mitzvot, he's still going to be pasul to testify. So therefore, I cannot learn from one directly, but it's binyan av. Binyan av means I cannot learn from one, as if not, it's kal v'chomer v'isha v'gamarnu. No, you can learn all it, but you're doing from both. Okay, that's called a binyan av. So ask the Gemara, ma le binyan av, right? How are you going to answer to do the binyan av? That he comes and he says, right, that is follows. He says like this. He says, yeah, he comes and he says like this. He says, so he says, Sha'af eno ish, that he comes and he says, right, that even though it's not a man, tomar be'eved shu ish. Meaning like this, at the end of the day, an eved is different than the isha nakatan. An isha is a woman, there's a completely different halachot, right? And the katan is not an ish either. So therefore, what's going on exactly? So says the Gemara, at the end of the day, right, when we just said right now that she's going to be psula ledut, because the Gemara says, v'amedu shenei anashim, and it's anashim, and it's not nashim. So therefore, we say like this, we said, how do you compare at the end of the day, the child and the woman to the Eved? At the end of the day, none of them is a man. An Eved is a man, meaning the woman is not a man, obviously, right? Or nowadays you never know. But okay, but that's I'm saying usually, right? Baruch Hashem, right? Now the child is also not a man. He'll become a man, Chazak Baruch, but right now he's not a man. Ella, but rather he comes and he says, taking gazlan. You're going to learn it from a gazlan. What does that mean? You're going to learn it from a gazlan. He says, "Ma le gazlan sheken ma'asav garmulo, tomar be'eved she'en ma'asav garmulo." He says, what does that mean? We're making a kal v'chomer from a gazlan, that just like a gazlan is allowed to get married to anybody in the kahal, but he's not allowed to testify. He says, so too here, right? Even he cannot get married, right? And he cannot testify. So the question is, one second, what is the connection? A gazlan, he did something bad. So since the gazlan came and he did something bad, so therefore, what's the connection? Male gazlan sheken ma'asav garmulo tomar be'eved she ma'asav garmulo. So says Gemara, you're right. Elateti, you have to learn it from gazlan and from one other one. Meaning you're learning it from the gazlan and from one other thing as well. What does it mean? From a tzad hashava, either from the woman or from, meaning we wanted to do at the beginning kal v'chomer from a woman. We pushed it off because at the end of the day he has milah, and then we tried with the child, but then he has he has the mitzvot. So then we did a tzad hashaveh. Right, the common binyan av, the common denominator, and we also pushed that off because at the end of the day we said that at the end of the day it's an ish, and the eved is an ish, and the isha and the katan is not an ish. So then we come and we say, so learn it from a gazlan. So you can learn it from a gazlan. Why? A gazlan, he did an avirah, and that's why he's pasul ledut. This guy's there's nothing to do with it. This guy was an eved kenani, right? Because he became an Eved Kenani. What's the connection that he stole or he did something? Nothing to do with it. So the Gemara says, you're right. You have to do a binyan av. You're using the gazlan plus either a woman or a katan.
Well,
Meaning,
Katan
I
is
need
temporary state.
one of the other. Yes, katan is a temporary state, but even with that,
Also
right now I'm
gazlan?
still using it. Which one?
Also gazlan.
Of course, until he does teshuvah. 100%. And an Eved Kenani until he's free. Okay? Fine. Says the Gemara.
So what's the common denominator?
The gazlan and one more. A gazlan, which is also an ish,
Yeah, no.
and one more. Doesn't matter whether it's a woman or whether it's the katan, but it's one more. That's a tzad hashav. So more better the Ravina Amar, more better the Ravina comes and he says, Amar, the pasuk says, Lo yumetu avot al banim, lo yumetu al pi avot she'en lahem chais banim. What does it mean, lo yumetu avot al banim? You're not going to kill a person on the testimony of avot that there's no chiyus to the banim, meaning, right? When an Eved Kenani has a child, that child does not go after the Eved Kenani. It goes after the master. And therefore, since it belongs to the master and it does not go after the Eved Kenani, when the pasuk says, Lo yumetu avot al banim, what does that mean? We cannot kill someone because of a testimony about someone which he does not have children. En lo chiyus banim. It has to be that a person has chiyus of an av and a ben. If you're going to tell me now, Kidam Ninan, just like we thought, Lo yumetu avot al banim, be'edut banim, we're talking about the testimony of the children. Lichtov Rachmana, so the Torah should have written, Lo yumetu avot al benehem, meaning you cannot kill a father on the testimony of a child. Right? That's if I wanted to relearn them. Yeah. Lo yumetu avot al benehem, meaning al pi benehem. My banim, shemamina comes to teach you the lo yumetu al pi avot she'en chiyus banim. We're talking about that you're not going to kill someone, right, that does not have the chiyus banim. So therefore, since an eved, there's no chiyus banim, he's pasul le'edut. He's pasul le'edut. So therefore, now what we're actually coming in is we're coming and saying it's not because of the tzad hashaveh between gazlan, right, and because of gazlan and a woman or gazlan and a child, it's a pasuk. Lo yumetu avot al banim. Since there's no chiyus banim on an eved is pasul le'edut. So the Gemara is going to ask on this. Ela me'ata. 1 second. Let's flip the other way around. It says in the same pasuk, ubanim lo yumetu alavot. What's the explanation? Ubanim lo yumetu alavot. Hachanami, are you going to tell me lo yumetu al bibanim, right? She'elem chiyus avot. What does that mean, right? That they don't have chiyus for the who's that again? So hachanami the pasul le'edut. According to what you just said, an Eved Kenani does not have any chiyus for his children. So for the Eved Kenani is pasul. So 1 second, a ger has no genealogy, no yichus to his parents, because he's like a katan shenolad dami. So you're going to tell me that a ger is going to be pasul le'edut? Meaning you're right, a ger cannot be a king, he cannot be, as we already mentioned, but that he can't even be kasher le'edut. Why not? And here, according to your logic of how you're learning, if you just said lo yumetu avot al banim means that you have chiyus of avot banim, so ubanim lo yumetu al avot, how do you learn that one? That you have banim that has chiyus to avot, so means a ger is pasul le'edut. That's what you're saying. Good. So says the Gemara, Amri, they said, hachiyasha, can you compare both cases? Ger nehiden lo chiyus lemala, but lemata yesh lo chiyus. A ger does not have chiyus upwards, meaning you can't go upwards, but he does have chiyus lemata. He does have, meaning a ger has a child. It's his child. Yeah, his child. But he cannot go upwards, but he goes downwards. He says, right, lemata yesh lo chiyus. Lepiko eved, this comes to exclude an eved de'en lo chayis lo lemala ve'lo lemata. That he doesn't have chiyus lo lemala ve'lo lemata. Meaning an eved is nothing. He doesn't go upwards and he doesn't go downwards. So an eved you cannot compare to anything else.
He can have kids.
But the kids don't belong to him.
Huh?
The kids don't belong to him.
What if he had kids before being an eved?
Yisal kadaitach ger pasul le'edut. But if you're going to tell me now that a ger be'emet is going to be pasul le'edut, lichtov rachmana, the Torah should say lo yumetu avot al banim al benehem. Sorry, it should say lo yumetu avot al benehem lechteamnina, just like we said lo yumetu be'edut habanim ve'nichtov rachmana, and the Torah should say banim lo yumetu al avot. Yeah, the Shema Mina say that we're learning two different halachot. Number one, halacha, lo yimetu banim be'edut avot, v'hidach lo yimetu al pi banim she'en chiyus avot. So it's actually two different things. Number one, that they cannot kill al pi the edut, right, of their own fathers. And number two also, lo yimetu banim, that they don't have chiyus of avot, right, which is basically gerim. The eved, you would have learned from a nafkale, from a kal v'chomer, from a get. Meaning, why don't we actually come and say that we make a kal v'chomer ger, right? From the ger, you're going to learn the eved. Uma ger, just like a ger that above, right? He does not have a chiyus. Aval lemata yesh lo chiyus, and still he's going to be pasul edut. So eved that he doesn't have chiyus, lo lemala v'lo lemata, eno din she pasul edut. So make now kal v'chomer eved from the ger. But rather, since the Torah wrote lo yumetu avot al banim, right? The mashma, that it's mashma lo yumetu al pi avot she'en lo chiyus banim, right? That they cannot kill, right? Al pi avot she'en lo chiyus banim. Shmamina, we learn from here, eved she'en lo chayis lo lemala v'lo lemata hu depasul edut. Eved, that there's no chayis, there's nothing, not above and not below, is going to be pasul edut. Aval ger, but a ger, Kevin the Yeshlo Chayis Lamata, since there is Chiyus Lamata, is going to be kasher ledut. It's going to be kasher. So the Gemara says, "V'chitim," and are you going to tell me, "Lichtov Rachmano banim lo yimetu al avotehem," that the children, they should not die on their fathers. So lama the Ketav Rachmana, why do we say then ubanim lo yimetu al avot? The mashma that it's mashma lo yimetu al pi banim shelam chiyus avot, that they cannot actually die, right, on the children that they don't have chiyus avot. So I did the katav, since it's written lo yimetu avot al banim, right, and it doesn't say birehem, katav nami ubanim lo yimetu al avot, in order that the pasuk should be the same signon, which means like this. Usually the pasuk always has to be symmetrical. How do you do it symmetrical? If you say lo yumetu avot al banim, so that's why it's written ubanim lo yumetu al avot, meaning you're not going to kill the fathers, right, for the children, and the children for the fathers, right? That is symmetrical, because the same terminology which is used upwards is used downwards, right? But now we understand why the Torah wrote it like that, in order that it should be symmetrical, right? That it should be used the same terminology, the same way. But he says, why is it that the Torah wrote ubanim lo yimetu al avot? Because I would have thought to say that has to do with the chiyus. So he said, no, it has nothing to do with it. It actually has to do with, we wanted it to be symmetrical. So according to this, we're actually going to answer up that why does the Torah not write ubanim lo yimetu al avotehem, right? And why does it write ubanim lo yimetu al avot, right? Which is mashma, again, the chiyus. We push away the chiyus, nothing to do with chiyus. Why? Make it symmetrical. That's it. So lemaskana, what's coming out is that we cannot learn from the Gemara, from the fact that the Gemara says, right, from the Torah saying lo yimetu avot al banim, we cannot make a diuk. Has to do with chiyus, nothing to do with chiyus, even without chiyus, nothing to do with it. Okay, fine. 2 dots. Cheres shoteh v'katan v'giatan ra. We already learned that when you have a cheres shoteh v'katan, if anybody deals with them, it's going to be bad for them. Why? Because you have to pay for them, but they never pay you. Okay? Says the Gemara, Ime de Rav Shmuel bar Abba me'agronia avanasiva lei l'Rabbi Abba. So the mother of Rav Shmuel bar Abba from Agronia was married to Rabbi Abba. Right? Katvetinu linichse, so she wrote all the nechasim that Rav Shmuel bar Abba brei to her own son. Batar de Shchiva, after she died. Yeah, Pechet Amubet. Azal Rav Shmuel bar Abba kamed Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. Ve'ukme benichse. So Rabbi Shmuel bar Abba went in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, right? That he had to paskin, and he said, right, that he bemet is like the baalim on all the nechasim. Now, usually what happens is that the Baal is Yoreshet Ishto. That's usually what happens, meaning the husband always inherits his wife, right? And therefore, however, though, if right now, just like in any type of Yerusha, right, this is only if there's Baalut, right, at the time of the Mitah. But for sure, you could do it whatever you want beforehand. So therefore, right, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba came and there was a present given during her lifetime, and therefore he was zocheh, which means, one more time, she had properties, she's married, right? She went and she gave her properties to her son as a present. Now, technically speaking, it goes to her husband, right? Now, this son came from a previous marriage, right? Yeah, it's not the father. It's not the father, right? So what happened was that, but since she gave it during her lifetime, there was no deen of Yerusha. Yerusha is only after death. This is.
She gave it during her lifetime, or she just wrote it?
No, she gave it as a present. She gave it as a present. She wrote it to her son, and I think the writing actually was give it to him as a present. Okay, so what happens now is that he says, since right now it was already given to the son, so therefore that's it. So now the husband doesn't get it. Okay, what happened was is Azal Rabbi Abba comes. The Amra Laminta Kamed Rav Oshia. He went and he told Rav Oshia, right? So he went and he told Rav Oshia what Rabbi did. Azar Rav Oshia, Abra Kamed Rav Yehuda. So Rav Oshia went and he told him for Rav Yehuda. Elmaleh, he says, right? Rav Yehuda, Hachi Amar Shmuel. This is what Shmuel says. Right? When we're talking about now that a woman, right, that a woman that came with properties beforehand, right? This is called what does that mean? She has properties that came before the marriage. She brought them into the marriage. So therefore, if she sold them and then she dies, the husband could take it away. So why? Because at the end of the day, we're going to see in the Gemara why. But so therefore, what's going on? So now we're saying like this. So therefore, Rabbi Abba could take it away from his stepson.
She brought it into the marriage.
She brought it into the marriage, but even if she would have sold it to a third party, the husband still could take it out of the third party.
Why?
Because it was during the lifetime of the husband. So therefore, just like if she sold it to a third party, the husband could take away during the lifetime from the third party.
Doesn't belong to him.
Doesn't matter, but it's mishubat to him. It's subjugated to him. It's a lien. It's like you have a mashkanta on your house. You have a mortgage on your house and you sell the house. The bank has that owns that house. You don't have the deed. The deed does not belong to you.
After she passed away. If she sells it while she's alive, he can put his hand on it. Now she passed away, so it's her will to give it to the son.
No, but she cannot have a will to give it to the son. Her will goes straight to the husband. Yerusha goes straight to the husband. That's why we're trying to get her out of Yerusha. Because if it's Yerusha, it goes straight to the husband. It had to be a matana b'chaim.
Her will, meaning it was her ratzon.
So Amru Akamed Rabbi Yirmiyah Baraba. So they said it in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah Baraba. Yeah, and Amar Leu, he said, Ana matnita yadana. I know that there's a Mishnah, right? And the Mishnah is actually against Shemuel. Why? The Mishnah says, if somebody writes his properties to his son after death, the son cannot sell it. Okay? Because it's still in the property of the father. 1 second. No, but this is still, he's writing it after Moto. Okay? But as long as he's still alive, he cannot do anything with it, which means the son is going to get it after death. But until the father dies, the son cannot sell it. Okay? Why? Because they're still in the shoot of the father. And also the Aveno Yecholim Kor, and also the father cannot sell it. Because they're written to the son. Right? So Machara Av, if the father does sell it, it's Mechurim. It's going to be sold until when? Ad Shiamut, until the father dies. Machara Ben, but if the son sells it, there's nothing until the father dies. Which means that once the father dies, now he does get it. Yeah? And that's what he's saying. So it comes out, Kimait Avmiha, when the father does die, the Lokeach has it. Afal Gav, the Meta Ben Bechaya Av. That means even though it could be that the son died during the lifetime of the father, that it never actually came to the hands of the Ben. Meaning, the son died before the father, so it never actually came to his hands because he died earlier. And still, what are we saying? We're still saying that it goes on. So therefore, you see from here, and now the Gemara is going to stop in the middle, right between, and the Gemara is going to say this. So Shimon ben Lakish says, "De'amar lo shna meta ben b'chayav de lo atil idei ben lo shna meta av b'chayav ben that atil idei ben v'kana lokeach." That means there's no difference whether the child died in the father's lifetime, that it never actually came to the hands of the child, or whether the father dies in the hands of the in the lifetime of the child, that it did come to the hands of the child. kana lokeach. The lokeach does purchase it. It's his. The itmar as was stated, machara ben b'chaya av, umeta ben b'chaya av. Right? Doesn't matter whether it was first he sold it and then the son died. Rabbi Yochanan says lo kana lokeach, but Rashi says kana lokeach. So now the Gemara is going to explain the machloket, right, between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, whether the lokeach is going to acquire it or not. One more time, what's the case? The case is that the son came and he sold the property during the lifetime of the father, and the son died. So the son died before the father. So he's technically speaking, it never actually came to the hands of the son because the son died. He died before the father, but he already sold it. So the question is it a good sale or not a good sale? Machloket Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. Now let's try to analyze this machloket, and then we're going to go back to Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba to understand why did he say that it goes to the son and not to the husband. Okay? So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, Lo kana lokeach. The lokeach is not going to come and he's not going to acquire it. Why? Amal lecha, as he's going to say, when does the Mishnah say machara ben lo kana lokeach at sheyamuta av? He says, we said in the Mishnah that if the son sold it, the lokeach does not acquire it until when? Until the father dies. But once the father dies, then he does acquire it. But that's only if the son did not die. Because it came into the hands of the son. But says Rabbi Yochanan that if the child does die in the lifetime of the father, that it never came to his hands. So when the father dies, he doesn't have anything. Alma kasavar, you see that from here, what? That the one that has the perot, he's the one that has the body of the land. Meaning the one that gets the rent is like the perot, right? So it's keilu that he's the one that gets it. So he says, kinyan perot ki kinyan eguvdami. The chizabin, so when he's selling it, lavdi dezabin, it's not his. Meaning like this, who has the perot right now? The father. So if the father has a perot, it's keilu, that means even though the title is not under his name, but he gets the usage. It's like a car that the deed is under your name, but the father is the one that's coming and using it all the time, and he's the one that's allowed to use it. You're not allowed to use it. So therefore, keilu, that's exactly what's happening over here. The kinyan perot is like kinyan aguf, meaning the one that has the rights of usage, it's like his. You're right, maybe on paper it belongs to somebody else, but I don't care about the paper. I care about who's using it. And until now, as long as the father's alive, the father's the one that's using it. The Shakish comes and he says, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish comes and he says, yeah, clear or not?
Yes.
The Shakish now comes and Shimon ben Lakish comes and he says, Kana lokeach. No, it is a good sale. Why? Ki ketani matniti, when our Mishnah comes and it says machara ben, right, that he sold the child, en la lokeach at sheyamuta av, v'chimait av miat, it le lokeach. So when the father dies, you do have to the lokeach. Lo shnam lo meta ben b'chayav datuli de ben. Doesn't matter whether be'emet he died and it came to the hand of the son, or lo sham meta ben b'chayav delot. That means according to the Shakish, he doesn't care whether it actually came to the son's hand or doesn't come to the son's hand. According to the Shakish, it always belonged to the son. So kana lokeach. So he holds that kinyan perot is lav ki kinyan guvdami. If he kazavin, so that means according to the Shakish, he holds that I don't care about who's right now taking the rent. What I care about is who's the deed under. So if the deed is under the son, so therefore it's under the son. That's it. I don't care about anything else. So therefore, when he sold it, It's his. So now we're going to go back. The Anan Hashta, now we're going back, whether it's according to Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, or whether according to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, right? Whether Rabbi Yehuda, they hold like Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. The Kama, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba comes and he says, if you're going to tell me now, Kinyan Perot is like Kinyan and Guftami. So when the father dies and then the son dies, why does the Lokeach get it? When this one sold it, he didn't, it's not his to sell. But rather we have to say that Kinyan Perot is Lav Ki Kinyan Gutami, which is like Resh Lakish. So it comes out, right, that Rabbi Abba is actually coming and holding like this. So Adura Lekamed Rabbi Yehuda. So they brought this Raya back to Rabbi Yehuda. Elmaleh, when he went and he answered, Hachya Mashmuel, this is what Shmuel said. Zoena Domele Mishnatenu, it's not compared to our Mishnah. My Tama, what's the reasoning? Rav Yosef says, Bishlama Itani Ipcha, if it would have been written the opposite case. Hakotev nechasav le'aviv. That if it was written that somebody's writing it to his father, that he's going to get it after the death of the son, then we could learn kinyan perot is not kinyan guf dami. But now that it's written hakotev nechasav livno, I could say is because mishum dera'ui liyorsho. That means since the son is ra'ui right lirusha, that's why. Meaning it has nothing to do with kinyan perot, not kinyan guf. Whether kinyan perot is like kinyan guf or not. There's a special concept that since he's fitting to Yerusha, so therefore it goes to the son afterwards. Meaning it's a special deen. Meaning don't bring me a proof from here. Kinyan perot kinyan aguf, no kinyan aguf. Nothing to do with kinyan perot kinyan aguf or not. It has to do with since the son is Ra'ui Liyorsho, that's why the son is able to do this. So Amaleh Abaye, so Abaye comes and he asks on this, sort of Yosef, Atu bera yarit abba? He says, 1 second, only the son is the only one that inherits from the father? Abba lo yarit bera, but the father does not inherit the son? They both inherit each other. Meaning, if a son dies, who inherits him?
Abba.
The father. Obviously we're talking about that he wasn't married and things like that. You understand? Because if not, then it's his children. But the father does inherit the son. Ela berather. האישה אף פעם לא...
לא, עם הבן היה...
האישה אף פעם לא יורשת. אישה לא יורשת. הבעל יורש, אישה לא יורשת. אף פעם. זה חוזר למשפחה שלו. לאבא שלו, לאחים שלו, אף פעם לא הולך אליה. Yeah? So he says, "Lavruchinu lenichse mibrekat." He says here, he was trying to get it out of his son. Meaning, we cannot bring a proof from our Mishnah that he wanted to basically throw it away. So to you, he's trying to bring away from the other children. Right? So therefore, we cannot bring a proof from the Mishnah. So then what's it not compared to our Mishnah? Mishum takanat usha, because of takanat usha. Ta'amar Rabbi Yosef Chanina beusha itkinu, haisha shemachra b'nisei belu b'chaye bala umeta, it's a special takana. Meaning, what she was trying to do was, she was trying to get it out of the husband. That's what she was trying to do. That's why she was trying to sell it. What happened? Right? Imagine, she's on her deathbed, and he's not treating her properly. So now what's she going to do? What does she do? She comes, she sells it, right, to somebody, and now the husband won't inherit it. She doesn't want him to inherit it.
Doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Why? Rusha, they made a special takana. And therefore, since they made this special takana, yeah, that's what we're saying, that meikara din kinyan perot is not kinyan aguf. And kinyan perot of the husband in the semelug cannot stop her from selling it. But the rabbis went and they said that the husband, right, since the husband comes, right, and he's looking for the semelug, if she's going to sell it, it's kilu, there's going to start being hatred between them. So because of that, Chachamim say, no, we strengthen the shi'abud of the husband that she's not allowed to sell it. He's allowed to be motzim al lekuchot. Yeah? Meaning, but it's true. Imagine right now. She comes, she gets married, all of a sudden, boom, she comes, she sells it. He's going to have such a hatred towards her. She took away all his animosity. So what happened? No. Usha, they made a special takana. So Amar Ravidi bar Avin says Ravidi bar Avin, right? We also actually learned in we testify about a person that he actually divorced his wife and he gave the ketubah, and she's actually working under him. And then what happened was, we're not going to say that they have to pay the entire ketubah. What is tovatana ketubata? Omdim kama adam רוצה לתת בתגובה של זו שנזבב ניגר שווימתה ישנה בלה, which means we're going to try to come and evaluate how much would a person pay for the ketubah. You know what that means? If you know that they're having a lot of shalom bayit issues, so then you would pay a lot of money for the ketubah because you know that od mea to, she's probably going to get the ketubah, right? Yeah. But if there's no shalom bayit issues and they're young, how do you call them, lovebirds or I don't know what? You understand? Why in the world? How much are you going to give for a ketubah? You're only going to get the money 60 years later, maybe. That's only if he dies first, and this and that. Yeah, you're not going to give a lot of money for the ketubah. So then we're going to say if it's going to be takanatusha, why you shouldn't bala? Just sell the entire thing. So obviously, we're gonna learn about this tomorrow. Continue.